Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our English Learning podcast. I'm Jennifer, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Elizabeth. How are you today, Elizabeth?
Hi, Jennifer. I'm doing great, thank you. I'm really excited about today's topic because it's one that everyone can relate to. Can you really know a lot about a person from the clothes they wear? This is a fascinating topic because clothes are something we all wear every day and they can say so much about us, or can they? Today, we're going to explore this question in depth, looking at the different ways that clothing choices might reflect personality, culture, mood, and more.
That's right, Elizabeth. Clothes can be a powerful form of self-expression. They're not just about covering up or keeping warm. They can tell a story about who we are, what we value, and how we see ourselves. Today, we'll dive into the psychology behind clothing choices, explore cultural and social influences, and discuss whether it's really possible to know a lot about a person just by looking at what they're wearing.
Exactly. And for our listeners out there, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Do you think you can tell a lot about someone from their clothes? Share your opinions with us, and we might even feature them in a future episode. So, Jennifer, let's start by discussing some of the reasons why people believe you can know a lot about someone from the clothes they wear. What do you think?
Well, Elizabeth, there are several reasons why people might think that clothes reveal a lot about a person. First, clothes can reflect personal style and taste. The colors, patterns, and styles people choose can give clues about their personality. For example, someone who wears bright, bold colors might be seen as more outgoing and adventurous, while someone who prefers neutral tones might be perceived as more reserved or practical.
Absolutely, Jennifer. Our clothing choices can say a lot about our personality and how we want to be perceived by others. For example, someone who dresses in a professional and conservative manner might want to be seen as reliable and serious, especially in a work setting. On the other hand, someone who wears more casual, artistic clothing might want to express creativity and individuality.
That's a great point, Elizabeth. And clothing can also reflect a person's mood or emotional state. Think about how we often choose our outfits based on how we're feeling. On days when we feel confident and energetic, we might wear something bold or stylish. On days when we're feeling down or tired, we might reach for something more comfortable and understated.
Exactly. Fashion psychologists have found that what we wear can actually influence how we feel and how we're perceived by others. This is known as enclothed cognition. For example, wearing a well-tailored suit might make someone feel more powerful and competent, while wearing something cozy and soft might make them feel more relaxed and approachable.
And let's not forget that clothing can also reveal a lot about a person's cultural background or heritage. Traditional clothing, such as a kimono from Japan, a sari from India, or a kilt from Scotland, can reflect a person's cultural identity and heritage. Even in everyday fashion, certain styles, patterns, or accessories can give us hints about where a person comes from or what cultural influences they embrace.
That's so true, Jennifer. Clothing can be a powerful way to celebrate and express cultural pride. And it's not just about national or ethnic identity. Clothing can also reflect other forms of identity like gender expression, political beliefs, or affiliations with certain groups or communities.
Absolutely, Elizabeth. And speaking of affiliations, clothes can also indicate a person's profession or social status. Uniforms, for example, can immediately tell us what someone does for a living: a police officer, a doctor, a chef. Even outside of uniforms, certain clothing brands, styles, or accessories can signal wealth, status, or a particular profession.
Exactly. Think of the difference between someone wearing a designer suit and someone wearing a tracksuit. While this isn't always the case, clothes can sometimes provide clues about a person's job, lifestyle, or financial situation. But Jennifer, I think it's also important to mention that clothes don't always tell the whole story, right?
That's a great point, Elizabeth. While clothes can certainly provide some clues about a person, they don't always give us a complete picture. Just because someone wears a certain style doesn't necessarily mean they fit the stereotype associated with that style. Clothing can be influenced by many factors, like budget, convenience, climate, and even peer pressure.
Absolutely, Jennifer. And it's also worth noting that people sometimes dress a certain way to conform to societal expectations or to fit in with a particular group, even if it doesn't reflect their true personality or values. So while clothes can give us some information, they're not always an accurate representation of who a person really is.
Exactly.
And speaking of different perspectives, I think it's a great time to hear from one of our listeners. Let's take a call from someone who might have an interesting perspective on this topic. Hi there, you're on the air with Jennifer and Elizabeth. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Elizabeth. My name is Amelia, and I'm calling from London, UK. I've been listening to your podcast for a while now, and I love today's topic. I wanted to share my thoughts on whether you can really know a lot about someone from the clothes they wear.
Hi, Amelia. Thank you for calling in. We'd love to hear your perspective. Do you think clothes can tell us a lot about a person?
Well, I think clothes can provide some hints about a person's style, mood, or even cultural background, but I don't think they tell the whole story. For example, I work in a creative field where people often dress in bold, artistic styles, but I know many colleagues who prefer to dress in a more understated way. It doesn't mean they're less creative or talented, it's just their personal preference.
That's a fantastic perspective, Amelia. You're right. Clothing can give us some clues, but it doesn't necessarily define a person's abilities or character.
Exactly. I think it's important not to judge someone solely based on their appearance. There are so many factors that influence what we wear, like comfort, practicality, and personal taste. We should always try to look beyond the surface.
That's so true, Amelia. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. It's a great reminder to be open-minded and not make assumptions based on appearances.
Thanks for having me. I love listening to your podcast, and I'm excited to hear more episodes.
Thanks, Amelia. Take care.
Bye, Amelia.
That was a great call from Amelia. Her perspective really highlights the importance of not judging a book by its cover, or, in this case, a person by their clothes.
Absolutely, Jennifer. And for those of you listening, if you're enjoying our podcast, please like and subscribe to our channel. Your support really helps us keep creating these episodes and sharing more interesting topics with you.
So, where does that leave us in our discussion today? I think it's clear that while clothes can provide some insights into a person's personality, style, mood, or cultural background, they're not always a definitive reflection of who someone truly is. It's important to remember that clothing choices can be influenced by many different factors.
That's right. And it's also worth mentioning that people might choose their clothes based on the context or situation they're in. For example, someone might dress more formally for a job interview or a wedding but prefer casual clothes in their daily life. So, the clothes we see someone wearing in one situation might not reflect their usual style or personality.
Exactly, Elizabeth. And speaking of context, let's explore how clothing choices can vary depending on cultural, social, and even psychological factors. For example, in some cultures, modest clothing might be preferred for religious or social reasons, while in other cultures, more relaxed or revealing clothing might be more common.
That's a great point, Jennifer. Cultural norms and traditions can play a significant role in what people choose to wear. In some cultures, specific clothing styles or colors may be associated with certain events such as weddings, funerals, or festivals. These choices often reflect deep-rooted cultural values and practices.
Absolutely. And social factors can also influence clothing choices. For example, people might dress differently depending on the social circles they belong to or the social status they want to project. In some cases, clothing can be used to signal membership in a certain group, like a sports team, a music subculture, or a professional organization.
Yes, and let's not forget the psychological aspect. Some people might dress a certain way to boost their confidence or to fit in with their peers. Clothing can be a way to communicate non-verbally with the world around us, to express our mood, or to influence how we're perceived by others.
That's so true, Elizabeth. And speaking of perception, let's explore the idea of first impressions. Many people believe that the clothes we wear play a significant role in the first impressions we make on others.
What do you think about that?
I think that's definitely true, Jennifer. Research has shown that people often make quick judgments about others based on their appearance, including their clothing. In fact, some studies suggest that it takes only a few seconds for someone to form an impression of you based on what you're wearing.
That's right. And these first impressions can have a big impact, especially in situations like job interviews, first dates, or networking events. The way we dress can influence how others perceive our confidence, professionalism, and even trustworthiness.
Exactly. But it's also important to remember that first impressions aren't always accurate. While clothes can give us some initial clues about a person, they don't tell the whole story. It's always worth taking the time to get to know someone beyond their appearance.
Absolutely, Elizabeth. And that brings us to another interesting point, the idea of self-expression through clothing. For many people, fashion is a way to express their individuality, creativity, and personal style. It's a way to communicate who they are without saying a word.
Yes, Jennifer. Fashion allows us to show the world a glimpse of our personality, our likes and dislikes, our mood, and even our values. Some people love to experiment with different styles and trends, while others have a more consistent, signature look. It's all part of the way we express ourselves.
And let's not forget that fashion is also a form of art. Many designers, stylists, and even everyday people use clothing as a canvas to create something beautiful, thought-provoking, or meaningful. Clothing can be a powerful tool for self-expression and storytelling.
Absolutely. And speaking of storytelling, let's talk about how clothing can convey messages beyond just personal style. For example, clothing can be used to make political statements, challenge social norms, or raise awareness about important issues.
That's a great point, Elizabeth. Clothing has often been used as a form of protest or advocacy. Think of the suffragettes in the early 20th century, who wore white dresses as a symbol of their fight for women's rights, or the Black Lives Matter movement, where people wore clothing and accessories to show solidarity and support.
Exactly. Clothing can be a powerful way to communicate a message, show support for a cause, or challenge societal expectations. It's a way for people to use their appearance to make a statement and influence others.
And that's why it's so important to remember that while clothes can provide some clues about a person, they're just one piece of the puzzle. People are complex, and there's so much more to who we are than what we wear.
Absolutely, Jennifer. And I think that's a great note to end on. Clothes can be a fascinating way to learn about someone, but they're just one aspect of a much bigger picture. We should always be open-minded and curious to learn more about the person behind the clothes.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope this discussion has given you some new insights into the world of fashion and what our clothing choices might, or might not, say about us. Keep listening, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye for now, everyone. Remember, it's not just about what you wear, but who you are.